What it do, NMA crew? Hey man, listen, today I'm going to be ranting about You Were Never Really Here, which is a movie recommended to me on Patreon. If you guys want a rant for some godforsaken reason, $5 a month or more on Patreon, and I will rant about something each month. So, this movie is pretty interesting. I definitely liked it a fair bit. At first, it was striking me as a bit of an archetypal, badass, jaded guy with a little bit of PTSD movie where it's just, supposed to be, some, kind of edgelord, hard-ass, beating horrible people up and in the most violent ways. And I was like, yeah, it's not really my fanfare, but I don't have anything against it. But then it started to really lean into the PTSD angle, and it got pretty interesting. I was talking to my friend who recommended it to me after I'd watched it, and he mentioned that one of the things that he liked about it most was that it was so understated. There was no unnecessary expo dumping and explanation of what's really happening. It's just it has faith in the viewer, I guess. And that's definitely something I noticed because it's very much a character study. It's not that long of a movie. It's a character study focused on the main character, and that's it. And it's sort of like his entire journey, his psychology. There's a lot of bits where the directing is made to emphasize the chaotic PTSD bubbling up in his head in various moments, and it's very claustrophobic, chaotic, and stressful. Super effective directing from beginning to end, to be honest. There are some extremely cinematic shots, especially towards the third act of the movie, where he has to bury his mother at sea, basically. A lot of really strong. It reminded me very heavily of Angel's Egg. Right there. But yeah, so I thought this was going to be some Crashmore shit, but it ended up being a little bit more soulful for sure. I would describe it as very immersive. It doesn't take you out of it by having other characters explain. So it's just one continuous hour-and-a-half chunk of the stream of consciousness of this one man. We're not having scenes between other characters developing exposition and giving the backstory about this whole criminal syndicate or conspiracy theory or whatever. It's just this guy and his one journey to find use in his life. He's deeply traumatized on several levels, feels like he can't change the world. He's just a total fucking grunt at heart. Dad was really horrible to him, sort of learned firsthand in the war that he doesn't really have a say in who lives and who dies, and he probably felt very powerless in that moment in a very profound way. He also worked in SWAT. There were a lot of things that were messed up about him, but he looked after his mom, and that seemed to be the one thing he felt he could do. That was positive, the one thing he felt he had control over. And so when that was taken away from him, he considered just ending it all, but there was actually an equally traumatized young girl that he decided to look after as his new meaning in life, despite how often he was fantasizing about suicide throughout this entire movie. And it's interesting. He had these weird memories come up, and I mean the entire movie's a bit artsy, I would say, in its direction. But especially I noticed it with regards to when he would put a bag over his head to try to suffocate himself to death or whatever. And that just reminded me of when I was little. This is kind of random. I actually accidentally, I was just playing around with a Ziploc bag, and I almost suffocated myself to death. And now to this day, anytime I keep something over my mouth, even if it's just a mask. I was struggling out here when everybody was wearing masks, because obviously I wore the mask and everything, but every time I would my brain would think I was starting to get short of breath because there was just something against my face, and I was having a stress response from when I almost died suffocating myself with a Ziploc. So it's I can attest to firsthand that that specific stimuli will bring back bizarre emotions from moments in your childhood or at least in the past, and it's just very odd. I found the combat a little bit weird because he's definitely a highly trained and calculating individual, but he was just kind of walking out to people with a hammer very matter-of-factly, and it sort of just wasn't the focus of the film. It was very much about the psychological state of our main character, but at the same time I would have wished for it to be a little bit more practical at times. There were scenes that were sort of set up with the way they were framed to be Mission Impossible type of heist, he's going through and taking out one guard quietly and the next one, but it's sometimes it just feels why don't more of these guards have guns? Why don't the other guards hear the screaming of this guy? There's no way the music is quite that loud. And then it's just, Yeah, I mean, it definitely suffers from, in my opinion, from the fact that there are not a lot of other like very compelling characters besides the main one, because that's just not the kind of movie it is. And I'm, just personally really big fan of ensemble cast and stuff. But really, I'm just grasping at straws here because the overall immersion and character arc of the main character was extremely well executed, and that was sort of the mission statement of this movie. There were a lot of really great trippy scenes blurring the lines between reality and delusion, and they sort of came to a climax towards the end where you're just straight up seeing like absolutely fabricated things that could not possibly exist. And I really sort of like that development throughout the movie. I love this sort of unreliable narrator stuff. I quite liked the message of the movie. I liked the main character. I found him to be pretty believable. I didn't know that Joaquin Phoenix was that like buff and intimidating. Actually, I had no idea. But yeah, it was really good, really well shot, really good concept, executed well. That's about all I have to say about it.